What is up, hockey fans? And I'm here to play Freebird. It's Freebird season. That's the only song I've listened to for the last week. I'm fired up about Four Nations and the USA hockey team. They've been incredible. Welcome to Clean Sheet of Ice, a Texas hockey podcast brought to you by Apollo Media. Shout out to our sponsor, Zing Zang. If you want margarita mix, Bloody Mary mix, any of the mixes, you want cans that already have the alcohol in them, go get Zing Zang today. We love them. We'll have the props up later this week for Zing Zang. And shout out to PrizePicks. Use code Apollo when you sign up. Get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. PrizePicks is a daily fantasy app. We love PrizePicks over here at Apollo Media. I am joined always by the saluting Dom Garcia. How we doing, bud?
Electric. I mean, this past week has been everything I could have hoped for as a hockey fan. Freebird has also been on repeat for me. I can't get enough of it. I'm watching all the edits. USA Hockey is here, and boy, do we have a great final lined up Thursday.
Yeah, and we've been previewing Four Nations since we started this podcast. We were very excited about it. Four Nations, Sweden, Finland, USA, and Canada are all facing off against each other. I've been facing off so hard for the last week. It's been incredible. There were questions. Like, we knew that the players were going to play hard. It was going to be more so like, how are the fans going to be incorporated in this? Are we going to gain hockey fans from a best-on-best tournament, first time since 2016, I believe? So it's been 8-9 years since we've had a real best-on-best tournament. And even that 2016 was a North America team versus world teams or Europe teams. Like, it wasn't even Canada versus US. It wasn't country on country. This is country on country. This means something. This means something so much to the players. It means a lot to the fans. We've got Josh Hill talking about hockey in group chats and tweeting about it. Like, if we can get that happening, Four Nations is an automatic success for me, and we haven't even gotten to the final yet.
Dude, I think that's the thing that I'm going to take away from this tournament is that game. Like there was every single game's been really good, but that United States and Canada game had the entire. It transcended sport, to be honest. Like, so many people, like me and you both, we have like our hockey Twitter, we have our NBA, MLB, rock, everything. Every sector of Twitter was talking about the United States and Canada. Like, people that had no business, never watched a second of hockey, were in real time changing the channel, going, I cannot miss this. This is something I want to be a part of. And I tried to tell everybody that this was going to happen. And there were Canadian media members that tried to downplay, well, it's only one-time thing. There's a makeshift trophy. Everything's kind of happening so quick. No. When you get a chance as a Canadian to play against the United States in your sport, you get up for it. And now we've learned that you get to wear that red, white, and blue. Some bodies are going to get laid out. And I got text from friends that I haven't talked to in a long time. My godfather texted me, said, man, this is like reminisce. This is what it felt like when everyone changed the channel to watch The Miracle on Ice. And these boys, they embodied that. I mean, I was telling, Mark right next to me before we started, this was the best first anything I've ever seen in sport. This was the best first quarter, first inning, first round, first whole, like anything. The way that game started, not just the fights, but the goals and the crowd in Montreal, I got to pay them respect. They brought the energy too. It just, you could not have scripted this, and the entire tournament has been exactly what I thought it would be. And I am damn proud of how those boys played. And win or lose, I think the sport of hockey will be winners after this tournament.
Absolutely. And I don't think I've been that fired up or that patriotic since maybe 2012 when Michael Phelps is going against Chad Leclos from South Africa, and he's talking all that shit before the 200 fly final. He's going to beat him. And all of a sudden, Phelps just takes off on that last 50, and Chad Leclos looking at him. He's doing the side breathing on the 200 butterfly. And I was just fired up after that. That and the 2008 Olympics with the 4x100 free relay. Phelps is on that relay, obviously, but Jason Liegzak has the fastest time in history in the Olympics in any sport or any swimming event, and comes back and beats the French, who were supposed to just walk away with that gold medal. That was going to ruin Michael Phelps' chance of winning 8 gold medals in an Olympics. That's the last time that I was just like fired the fuck up. And that game, USA versus Canada, is that Saturday night? I
Yep.
have not felt something like that in so long. I've watched my team win a World Series in person. I was there in 2022. I've watched a 70-point game from my favorite football team in person. Like, I've watched a lot of cool things in person now. That's the best sporting event I've watched, and I've watched it on TV. Like, I don't know of another sporting event where I was just like, that was incredible. I guess like game 5 of 2017 World Series, like that was the last time on TV where it's like, oh my God, that was one of the best games I've ever watched. It was impeccable. But we'll start from the top. So we're in Montreal. First 2 games of the round robin for each team were played in Montreal, Bell Center. Start off with a bang. Canada, Sweden, they bring out a representative from each team of the 4 nations and a legend of each team from the 4 nations. And that just got the blood pumping. Like, you got Mario Lemieux walking out with Sidney Crosby. That was incredible. Sidney Crosby getting a bigger ovation than Mario Lemieux. That was impeccable. Like, Mr. Canada is Sidney Crosby, other than Wayne Gretzky. I believe that's him. Like, it was awesome. But that game, Canada just kind of steamrolled them in the first period. It was like, this game's going to be 6-0 at the end of it, 6-1. Like, we didn't think anything of it. And then Sweden battles back in the third period. We get a 4-3 overtime winner. Was it Mitch Marner? He got the winner in OT in the game 1. Like, in the Bell Center, the Canada crowd was fire. Like, it was Canadians. They love their hockey. We know this. For a non-Olympic or World Championship matchup, this was one of the best crowds I've heard on TV in a long time.
Yeah, dude. Like I knew it from the second they put the broadcast on in the arena, and the anthems are flowing, and they're booing Austin Matthews, who was sent as a representative of the team. But yeah, like there's a lot of animosity between the two countries, I know, but like I have to pay respect to that environment uplifted what was going on the ice. And I'm not a Mitch Marner hater. Like I want him to get out of Toronto, to be honest. But that was a really big goal for him. A lot of these players are saying it like this feels like they're Stanley Cup champions that are saying like these games are the most important games of hockey they've ever played. And that was a moment Mitch Marner's not going to forget. And it was so great to start off the tournament that way, because that set the tone. Like every single team in this tournament, you're here to win.
Yeah, they're representing their colors, their country, their flags. They're doing all of that, and you can see it on everybody's faces. Like, before the game and everything, no one's smiling or anything. No one's just happy to be there. They're all ready to go to war, and I thought that was really cool. The next game, the next day, USA versus Finland. Obviously, we had a great interest in this game because half of Finland's roster is a Dallas Star, and obviously we're American, so we're rooting for America. So I was rooting for a little bit of a good game, but I wanted the U.S. to just kind of steamroll them, and that's kind of what happened. Finland got out. They scored that. I guess they scored the second goal, and it was 1-1. And we're like, it's kind of a gross game. Like, or no, they scored the first goal and kind of opened it up, and they ended up getting that goal late in the first, and then another goal in the second, and you're like, 2-1 against Finland. That's tough. Like, even with all of their defenders out, and this is an NHL only tournament as well, so you can only pick your best NHL players. The Finland roster only has, I think, 11 defensemen in the NHL, and like half of them are hurt right now. So they're already thin on defense. Their goalie isn't as good as ours. And I was like, there's got to be something. And then that second period, the Tkachuk boys get on a line with Jack Eichel, which would be the best line in the NHL by far if you just put that on an NHL roster. And all of a sudden, it just was mayhem. The Tkachuk boys had 4 goals and 1 assist combined, and 6-1 rout of Finland, which was awesome to feel. Freebird played 6 times, and then another time after the goal horn at the end. So it's like Freebird was flowing through the veins, and it was just a great game. And watching the Tkachuk brothers on the same line was really, really cool.
Yeah, like the second they got on that line, like it was just scary hours. Our blue line this entire tournament has looked great, but after that game, I started to see rumblings of, dude, if we can get Brady Tkachuk out of Ottawa and we can get him with Matthew. And then they were saying like, well, if that ever happens, Vegas will find a way to get them over to Vegas. I'm like, oh God, no.
That would
That
suck.
that would suck because if there was any team that could find a way to do it, it's Vegas. But my goodness, that like I'm spoiled in Dallas. We until Sagan got hurt, we get to watch the best line in hockey. No, that was the best line in hockey, and I got to admit that power play in Canada, scary hours, especially the way they started their first game.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like the Kachucks and Jack, it's just too much talent to cover. And hearing Freebird every 5 minutes, it felt like it was awesome.
Yeah, because the Kachuk brothers are both top tier players in the NHL, but I don't think they do like one thing better than everybody else does. Like they're just meaner than everybody else. They work harder than everybody else. They'll finish every hit that they can, and they're going to find a way to get those greasy goals. When they got like 2 or 3 out of their 4 were just absolute greasers, like just not even good goals in any way, shape, or form, but finding a way to get it done. And beating Finland was huge to start off the momentum, especially in Canada, where the anthem was booed. The national anthem for America was booed, and the Kachuk brothers both took disliking to that. They were unhappy. Matthew Kachuk was asked about it in the presser after the game and was like, I didn't like it. And that was his only answer. That was it. There's no more words and everything. And we'll move over to Saturday. And before we get to the USA-Canada game, we got to talk about probably the biggest rivalry in hockey, Finland and Sweden. Like those teams, if you think USA and Canada don't like each other and want to beat each other and beat their brains out, Finland and Sweden is that on steroids. Like they just hate each other. The NHL Europe and NHL TikToks have been putting out things where they're like, if you could take one player from the opposing team, Sweden or Finland, who would you take? Finland, I think there was one person that answered an actual player. Everybody else was like, no one. I'm good. I don't need anyone. Everybody else was like, no, we're good. Don't want anyone. It was an awesome game, though.
Yeah, dude, like that rivalry, like for people who don't know, that's like 2000s Red Sox Yankees. That's like Roger Clemens trying to throw one right at A-Rod's head. Like though, like it's we're so far away from like geographically that we don't realize, but no, Finland has been very fun to watch. I mean, so is Sweden too. Sweden, they get a little leaky in transition, but Finland is that classic, like we may not take the big risk, but we're going to play a consistent hockey game. And watching Finland play, it feels like I'm watching an NHL team play. Like they know where they're going to be. They know where the passing lanes are, and they know what their goalie can do. It was kind of like surreal to watch, to where like every other team feels like an all-star game team. Finland feels like just a normal team. But yeah, like that was a really fun ending to that game, and love seeing my Dallas Stars shine on the big stage.
Yeah, and Finland, I think, is the smallest out of the 4 countries participating. They were the least favorite to win, I think, the Four Nations tournament, and they've got a lot of star power on the forwards. Obviously, Miro Heiskanen's out on defense, so their best defenseman is Esa Lindell, Dallas Star, and he's been really, really good. And he's throwing some nasty hits yesterday against Canada as well. I was like, well, boy, Esa, he's learning something from Liam Bichsel, I guess, because he got paired up with him just before the break, and I was like, Esa, you're throwing a little bit more hits than I'd seen before. And he goes, really? Have I? And I was like, yeah, you're throwing like bigger hits and everything, because this is the nicest guy. He's always smiling, win or lose. Like, he's just having a good time and everything. He doesn't throw hits, but he's a great defenseman, and he's out there throwing hits for Team Finland. He's the guy for Team Finland on the back end. And yeah, Mikael Granlund. So that game goes to overtime. No one scores in the third period, and Mikael Granlund gets a quick one and a little 2-on-1 action, and he's looking right at the other Finnish guy in between the Swedish guy, and just fired it 5-hole, no look, just a beauty goal. And that's something that we were curious what we were going to get out of Granlund for the Dallas Stars heading into the last part of the season. And we needed someone to just have timely goals or smart plays and all that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what Granlund was doing this entire tournament. So seeing Granny get that overtime winner was huge, especially for a Dallas Star to get recognition on the grand stage. And that's big for us, because we had some heavy hitters in this tournament, but Team USA and Team Canada, there's no stars on the team. So it was all Finnish guys for the most part. So yeah, Granny getting an overtime winner was huge. Beating Sweden was awesome, because obviously I'm rooting for Finland. It's Dallas North, essentially. So every Stars fan is probably rooting for Finland. And yeah, that was a fun game. It was a really fun game. It was kind of nasty, but it wasn't as jaw dropping, I guess, as USA Canada was that night.
Yeah, and one thing, like, I gotta say, like, these refs in this tournament are really letting the boys play, and
Mhm.
I noticed that in the Sweden-Finland game more than all the games, but just generally speaking, like, there are some calls that are kind of just, the refs are saying, "We're gonna stay out of this. You guys go play hockey." And I appreciate that just with some, especially in the United States-Canada game with so much animosity, and, these boys are playing like it's game 7 of the cup final. And I just I could not sleep after that game. I normally go to bed at like 10. I went to bed, I don't know, like that's how joyful I was. The Apollo group chat was buzzing. I was in I don't use Snapchat, but group chats in there that I'm just in that haven't been opened in like a year and two were buzzing. Like, it was just unreal as a sports fan. And I think for that moment to be that big, I think you had to have everything. It had to be in Canada. Things had to happen the way they did. And after like the fight settled down, it was a really good hockey game to where you saw the most skilled players on planet Earth play. And even in like the tough situations, like, I didn't know Austin Matthews was this good defensively. Like, I didn't there was a lot of things that got discovered. Charlie McAvoy, I mean, we knew he could hit, but golly, um, Brady being Brady, like, a couple of Canadian players kinda went non-existent that game,
Mhm.
but, I mean, I would too when I see the United States throwing 3 fights in 9 seconds. I mean, if I'm Marchand, I'm laying back. Mitch Marner kinda didn't have much going, and Connor Hellebuyck deserved to be one of the stars of that game, but hey, it is what it is. They're in Canada. I understand why McDavid got a star, but dude, like, we asked for best on best, and that is exactly what we got in that game, and I cannot wait for Thursday to cap this thing off.
Yeah. I mean, that game, just to start, like, yeah. So I'm sitting in bed. I was like, all right, we'll just get in bed early. We'll hang out. Me and my wife, we'll chat. We'll do whatever. I'll just throw the game on, like, whatever. Turn it on, and I just kind of glance up, and all of a sudden, Matthew Tkachuk is fighting. There's 1 second off the clock in the first period. He's already fighting. I'm like, all right, I'm going to dial in a little bit more. And then turn the volume back down after the fight. And I was like, that was a great start to this game. And nothing's happened other than a fight. Turn the volume down, look up. Brady Tkachuk's fighting. I'm like, all right, volume's up. We're diving into this game full head of steam. Like, Kat, you're watching this game as well. Like, babe, you got to watch this. This is impeccable. Brady chucks him. He gets the win on that fight. I think the Tkachuk fight was a 50-50 toss up, and he's already in the penalty box, and Matthews just banging on the glass, like, let's fucking go, get him. And then he opens the door. They dap each other up when Brady comes to the box, like, impeccable moment. And then after the game, they have the sound bite of them, and they're mic'd up, and they're like, "How was my fight?" And they're like, "Dude, it was impeccable. Like, that was awesome. Like, you got him." And he's like, "How's mine?" Dude, awesome fight. Like, way to set the tone there, boys. And then US, they kind of get a rush on the goalie, on Bennington, and get a shot on net. Puck's frozen, and JT Miller just like, I have to fight somebody now. JT Miller's fighting somebody. That means this game is on its head already. And he's fighting Parayko, much larger human being, much stronger human being. Parayko definitely won that fight, but just the fact that JT Miller, of all people, is fighting someone, just setting the tone. And that's all in the first 9 seconds of game time. 9 seconds. There was 3 fights with one guy that you don't expect to fight, and the Tkachuk Bash brothers just going after it. It was the best start to any game of all time ever. Like, there's just nothing that can compare to that.
And that's what makes Four Nations because it's like, this doesn't happen in the Olympics. They won't let that fly. Like, you're going to be out the rest of the tournament. This doesn't happen in World Cup of Hockey, World Juniors. It had to happen in Four Nations. And everyone in the NHL league office said, we have to stand back, and we have to just, the players, we have to let them be players. And God, I mean, I'll put it to you this way. CTESPN was tweeting about this game.
Yeah.
That shows you how much coverage it got. Bill Simmons, who his life is to cover the NBA. It's all he's ever, I mean, he's covered more. He covers the NFL, but his big thing, like he pays off his house covering NBA coverage. He said, "You had me at 3 fights in 9 seconds. I'm not watching whatever they're doing at the NBA All-Star weekend. I'm watching this game." And it just, like, I'm still smiling. And it happened days ago. Like, it was just so incredible. And the hockey after the fights was also so good. Like my friends that don't watch hockey, this is why I watch hockey. It's because it's the best sport in the world, and there are things that just happen around the entire game that it's just you can't take your eyes off it. It was incredible.
Yeah. And Connor McDavid, they obviously go on the power play, and then I think it was like 4.5 minutes into the game, he gets that first goal of the game. So Canada's just aroused.
Yeah.
The crowd was nuts. They were loving it. And the best player in hockey scores the first goal for Team Canada against Team USA. They were buzzing and everything. And Jake Gensel gets a goal in the first period. So it's 1-1 going to the second period. Dylan Larkin gets the next goal. But it was just it was a game 7 type of game where everything is so hard. It's so hard to get into the zone. It's so hard to get a clear shot on goal. Even if you're just hitting the goalie in the chest, like that part was difficult. The goalies were both very, very good. Bennington obviously has been a little bit shakier in the last few years, but he's Team Canada's best option. And even he was really, really good. Team Canada they couldn't get a goal on net, which was awesome. That hit from McAvoy on Connor McDavid, which we'll talk about McAvoy here in a second, but that hit where he just absolutely levels them next to the boards and throws them on the ground, like just the physicality in that game. I think there was 63 recorded hits, which is 50% higher than the average NHL game. 50% higher.
Like McDavid scores that goal, and I think not even a minute later gets put on his ass. Like that McAvoy hit sounded like a lightning strike during a hurricane, which we have a lot of them down here in Houston. Like it was just thunderous.
Oh, that Brady Tkachuk hit on Drew Doughty.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
shook me to my core. If you can go find that clip, like that sound that happened, that was captured on the broadcast, not like on the ice or anything. That was on the broadcast, how loud it was. It was incredible. It was a tornado that just hit the wall, and it was Drew Doughty of all people. Like Drew Doughty is not a small human being in any way, shape, or form. One of the best defenders we've seen over the last 15 years, and Brady Tkachuk just sending him on his ass and plowing him through the boards the physicality was unmatched. 50% higher than an NHL average game.
I didn't know that, but that's insane.
I think it was 63 hits, and the average is like 42 in an average NHL game, which not every NHL game is going to be USA versus Canada, so I can't like super equate it, but 50% higher than the average game is nuts. 20 more hits.
And it was like guys that like aren't known for laying it out there too. Like they were just everybody. Like that's one thing you noticed in this game though, is like the United States, our roster is big. Like Canada has ruled international hockey since the beginning of the sport, but it's definitely felt like, man, we don't have a McDavid, we don't have a Crosby, but God, man, we have our fourth line is not your fourth line. Our third line could be your first and second line. Like that's how good and how skillful and how big our American players are now.
Chris Kreider didn't even play in this tournament until last night. That was his first game, and he gets a goal immediately, like right off the rip. And I'm just like, Chris Kreider is one of the better hockey players that we have in the NHL. Like he's an awesome player. Obviously, he's on the Rangers, and they're not playing very well, but he's an awesome player. And all of a sudden, he's just, step right up, give me a goal, I'm good. So yeah, first iteration of USA Canada was impeccable. Can't wait for the final. But last night, yesterday afternoon, Canada versus Finland. Canada just was dominating the game until the third period, and all of a sudden, like with 5 minutes left, Esa Lindell scores. I'm like, Esa got a goal? That's weird. Like he got a power play goal a few weeks ago for the Stars, and I was like, that's wild. Esa Lindell just scoring on a power play. That's wild. But he just ripped it from the right side and over on the left of the goalie and snuck it through. And then Mikael Granlund kind of took over. He had 2 goals in 30, 40 seconds. Like the last 2 minutes, he scored 2 goals. And then all of a sudden it's a 3-4 game, and Canada has to be freaking the fuck out. Like, if we lose this game, then Finland's in the final or Sweden's in the final. Like, they're out pretty much if they lose that game. And they end up getting the empty netter, but a 5-3 game. Finland with just no defensemen, a B tier goalie in comparison to Canada. They had to do a goalie switch after the first period or in the middle of the first period. And Canada was just dominating. And all of a sudden, the last 5 minutes, Finland was just like, yeah, we're not just going to roll over and die. So I thought that was cool. And 3 goals from 2 stars was nice to see, even if Finland didn't win.
Yeah, no, I was getting nervous because I think everybody wants Canada, United States, but those Granlund goals super hard to pull off. Like he had to only put it in those slots, and yeah, it was. I'm loving what I'm seeing from Granlund, and I remember when it happened, everyone freaked out. Oh, we're giving up a first round pick. No, this is why you gave up a first round pick.
Yeah, and there's talks about him potentially re-signing with the Stars this summer. He's a UFA, so he's a great fit for the roster, and obviously a great fit for Finland. One of the leaders. He was an assistant captain, so yeah, it was a good fight from Finland. They just didn't have their best players on the ice and other on defense. Like they just could not defend Canada in the way that they needed to beat them in an afternoon game too. Switching over to Boston as well, so you had travel and early game and no defenseman. So that was rough for Finland, but Canada advances to the final with a win regulation. And then Sweden, USA, we get Jake Ottinger in the net, which was cool. They had already solidified their spot in the final with the first 2 wins in regulation. So they were able to give Hellebuck a night off and put Jake Ottinger in there, which was really cool. He went to BU and Boston University as well, so he got to play back home or where he went to college in Boston. So that was cool. U.S. defense was just bad in that first period. It was really bad. Kind of when the Stars have those ugly turnovers in the defensive zone, and then there's just like a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2. Like it was those kinds of situations with Sweden. You knew Sweden wasn't going to go down without a fight. They hadn't won a game in the tournament. They didn't want to go home without at least one win. They thought they had a chance at the final and had 2 overtime losses and lost to Finland, and they just needed a win. And they played better in that first period, and then after that, it was a whole bunch of nothing, basically. There was a few posts hit by the U.S., and Jake was good. Both goals, I'm not giving any shit for those. They were both really good screen goals or the really bad. They were both bad defensive turnovers. So Otter was really good. It's just U.S. just didn't have any juice. The Tkachuk brothers both. Brady went out in the first period with that injury, and Matthew didn't start. Austin Matthews didn't play. So they just didn't have their best guys out there. And then McAvoy, obviously, he didn't play. So it's just like didn't have the best roster out there, and the game wasn't needed to win to make it to the final. They were already in the final. So a little less juice, which kind of sucks because it was the first game in the U.S., but Otter looked good, and I'm glad he got a game in before they returned back to NHL action. And yeah, U.S. lost 2-1, but I'm not putting that loss on Jake Ottinger.
No, not at all. I thought he played really good. Like there were some saves in the third period that were just vintage Otter. Mm-hmm. The second Brady went to the locker room, I think that's when the vibe changed into, all right, guys, this game does not matter. Like what matters is Thursday. Let's all just get to Thursday because injuries were happening fast. And when the game started, Brady treated that game like it was USA Canada. I think he laid out a hit like 20 seconds into the game.
Yeah, he was throwing.
Yeah. So like when he went down, everybody kind of sat back and went, all right, like
take it easy.
Yeah, let's take it easy. Let's, everybody just let's get to Thursday. And I think that's what the product that was out there on the ice. Yeah, like I think even with that being said, they were put in really good situations to practice for Thursday. Like throughout they were trailing, they were in power. I mean, they hit the post like 5 times. Like they should have scored, but they didn't. But nevertheless, like it was a very good practice, for lines. It was practice for situations. I left that game, everyone was like, oh my gosh, we got to pick it up. I was like, no, like they know the real game's Thursday. So I didn't leave it too worried. I just think it was, it was a tune up for Thursday.
Yeah. And we learned that just before recording that both Tkachuk brothers are good to go, are expected to play on Thursday against Canada. No surprise there. They're hockey players. They're going to want to play this game, even if they're a little banged up. And then McAvoy went to the hospital, I guess, late last night or earlier this morning in Boston with an upper body injury. They didn't know what it was. And it seems like there's an infection going on. So he's out for Thursday. But good news is the Norris Trophy winner is walking right through those doors. Quinn Hughes, he was a late scratch before the rosters or before the tournament started. So he wasn't going to play on Team USA, which sucks because that's the Norris Trophy winner. Like, you want your best defenseman, like the best defenseman in NHL, arguably, is Team USA. You want them out there on the ice. Good news. Since Canada got to bring Thomas Harley in because they lost Pietrangelo and Cale Makar was out with sickness, Quinn Hughes joining Team USA for the final on Thursday. That just was like a sigh of relief because that's what I was a little bit worried about was the defense. We have great defenders. We have the best top six in this tournament. But it's Canada. You got McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby. You got them all out there. It's terrifying, even with the best defenders. Getting Quinn Hughes for Team USA for the final is a massive bump.
And again, I got to go back to, this doesn't happen in the Olympics. This doesn't happen in World Cup of Hockey. Like, it had to happen in Four Nations because they made the rules very relaxed just in case something like this happened. Because this is what the fans want. They want to see the best players playing against the best players. And, we're getting Quinn Hughes back, obviously one of the best in the entire world. And it's shaping up to be a big one. I cannot wait.
Yeah, I think the rosters were 20, so 13 forwards and 7 defensemen that you could bring and have at your disposal. So you have 2 healthy scratches every night, I believe is what was the original rule. And then obviously Pietrangelo goes down with injuries, so Thomas Harley gets called up to Canada. He doesn't get to practice with them before that first and second game, and they were unsure, and then Cale Makar's out, so Thomas Harley inserts in. It's a very relaxed ruling, and it was in favor of Canada at the beginning. So I was like, if we're losing McAvoy and we lose a Tkachuk brother, like, do we get to call anyone up? And right before this podcast, at that moment, no, they weren't allowing us to do that, is what Friedman and everyone were tweeting. And I was just like, it's kind of bullshit. Canada gets to bring in a guy because one guy gets hurt, but we get a guy hurt, and now we can't bring anyone in for the final. It's kind of bullshit. Quinn Hughes, turns out he gets to play. It's a pick 'em. I'm looking at it on ESPN right now. So ESPN Bet or whatever their betting platform is. We don't use them, but it's right there in front of me. It's a pick 'em. It's -110 for both teams. No one knows what's going to happen. Canada's going to come firing against the U.S., though. They're pissed that they lost that game. They're pissed that there was 3 fights in 9 seconds. I know it. Like, they're willing to go for war for their country as well. So they're going to come out firing, and it's going to be a little bit scary.
Yeah, and we were discussing this before we started recording. Like, it's going understated how good Thomas Harley is as a hockey player. And for him to get this spot, I mean, he did not practice with the team. He watched them practice from the hallway. Like, I saw the video. And he goes from that to being thrown into Canada versus US within a day's notice. And he played really good, and he's played good the game after that. Like, he is so young. Like, he's going to be a problem now and in the future for Team USA. Luckily, he's not going to be a problem in the NHL because we have him on our team, and nobody else does. But yeah, he's getting the notice that he should, and that's because he's a super talented player.
Yeah, Harl's got to play that second game. He was a healthy scratch for Game 3 against Finland. Makar came back, so obviously Makar's going to play over Thomas Harley. He's just a better player right now. And it sucks for Wyatt Johnston. I talked to Wyatt before they left at the last practice before the West Coast road trip before the Four Nations break. And so, you got any plans for the break? What are you doing? He's like, I'm going to Cabo. Like, I'm going to just go home for a little bit and then go to Cabo, have some fun, and then come back, get ready for practice and the games and everything. And Harley was supposed to go with Wyatt to Cabo. I think they had just gotten there, and then Harley got the call, and he's like, all right, got to go to Canada and got to go back home. And Harley is an interesting one because he's dual citizenship. Like, he was born in the U.S., he played here, and then moved to Canada to progress his hockey game, which obviously turned out great for him because he's an NHL player. He's going to make a lot of money. He's going to score a lot of goals, and he's going to play great defense. But Wyatt's sitting in Cabo by himself. I don't know if he came back today for practice or not, but yeah, poor Wyatt. Just his vacation buddies just didn't come with him. So that kind of stunk. But yeah, Canada-US final Thursday night. I believe we may do a live stream from the office with the boys. I'll join in remotely, and it'll be a hell of a game. It's going to be Stanley Cup Game 7 on steroids, Olympic gold medal final kind of vibes. Like, the boys are going to want it on both sides, and it's going to be impeccable to watch.
Yeah, I was not scared for the first one, but like, boy, it feels like when the Astros were in Game 7. Just you don't know what's going to happen. You're hoping for the best. You have no plan if it goes south, but man, like I just, as a hockey fan, you got to get up for it. And even if you're not a hockey fan, like there's nothing on TV on Thursday. Tune in. United States versus Canada, who's not in? And nobody. Like you got to watch.
Yeah, the NBA is coming back to action tomorrow night, and then Thursday night there's pretty much a full slate. But after that All-Star performance from the NBA, I don't know how many people are going to be tuning in unless you're an NBA sicko like I am. But I'll be in on Thursday night, Canada, USA. That's what I'll be watching. I'll be fired up. I have my red, white, and blue on. Stars and bars, boys. Like, I'm fired up. I need another fight. I need like one more fight. It's not going to happen from the jump this time. I just need an organic, like, bullshit hit, a bad hit or bad play or something where someone just gets fed up and they just drop the gloves. I need one of those. If I get one of those in an overtime game, I'll be ecstatic. It'll be nuts if we get an OT game from this one.
Yeah, that'd be crazy. And just to, again, like these players, it means so much to them. I mean, Jack Eichel has won a Stanley Cup. He's won, I believe, when he was in college, won a championship there too. Like he said, like, all the games I've ever played in hockey, this is the big one. This is the most important game I've ever been involved in. And I just, it's going to be incredible.
Yeah. And this is exactly what we wanted. We wanted Canada, US in the final for the most part. I selfishly kind of wanted Finland and US just because it would have been really funny for Canada to not make the final with this roster and the players that they have. And then Finland just because of the stars factor. But very, very happy with the results that we've gotten so far. It's going to be Hellebuck in net. It's going to be Bennington in net. And they're going to be pretty much at full force. Now that we got Quinn Hughes, we're pretty much at full force. Obviously, losing McAvoy sucks, but slot again, Quinn Hughes is not a bad thing in any way, shape, or form.
No, it's like everyone was like, well, we don't have Russia, so we can't call it best on best. No, I mean, this is the best players on planet Earth playing against the other best players on planet Earth.
Fired up, boys. Fired up. We'll be back Friday. We'll recap the final win or lose for Team USA, but we'll be back. Hopefully it's a win to recap it on Friday. And then moving forward, we'll be back twice a week with Clean Sheet of Ice. We're going to do 2 episodes a week for the Dallas Stars. We're going to recap all their games. We're going to talk about all the stuff I learned at practice or in the games at the press conferences and all that kind of stuff. So 2 times a week, we're ramping it up for the end of the season, heading into the playoffs. Stars are in prime position for that. But before we get to that, obviously, Team USA versus Team Canada. Best on best for the first time in, I guess, 11 years, really. 2014 was the last time we had a real best on best tournament. So everybody loves it. If people that don't watch hockey in any way, shape, or form are watching it, that means something. So let's watch some hockey, boys. Let's watch Team USA versus Team Canada. It's going to be awesome.
Absolutely. The pride that people are having just because of so much animosity, it's so fun to watch. Like, we had minor league hockey in Houston, and I could have gone to Texans. I went to Texans games, Astros, Rockets, but for whatever reason, it was always the minor league hockey games that just drew me. Like, you can ask my parents. We went to more Arrows games than any other sporting event. My dad has season tickets to the Texans. Like, that's how much we loved hockey, and it's full circle now. Like, I love this sport, and I'm so happy that it's on the stage that it's on, and I can only thank the NHL for that. It's going to be a banger.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait. 4 Nations is a massive success. NHL could not have hoped it to be any better. All the NBA players are like, wish we were doing that. Like, that would be way better than the All-Star format that we had. The Pro Bowl sucked. I bet everybody would love a 4 Nations tournament outside of the NFL because the NFL is just 99.7% Americans. It's like you couldn't do anything with that. But everybody's loving it. If every other sport is talking about it, that means you did something right. And Gary Bettman, you finally did something incredibly right in your tenure. So good. Kudos to you for bringing best on best hockey back. Team USA versus Team Canada. We'll probably be doing a live stream from the Apollo HOU YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and be waiting for us at 7 p.m. on Thursday. Shout out to our sponsor, Zing Zang. Go get your margarita and Bloody Mary mix from wherever you get those mixes from. They got cans that already have the mix and the alcohol in it, so you can go get it pre-made, or you can just go get the mix and make your own drinks, however strong or light you want to make them. We love Zing Zang over here. They've been a sponsor before. Welcome back, Zing Zang, and shout out to Prize Picks. Use code Apollo when you sign up and get up to $100 matched. I'm hitting the less than on saves for both goalies on that. There's not going to be a lot of shots. It's a game 7. It's a gold medal type of match. There's not going to be a lot of shots, so I would hit less on the goalies. Not advice, but that's what I'm going to do for daily fantasy on Prize Picks. Use code Apollo when you sign up. Get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. We'll be back very, very soon on Friday with another episode of Clean Sheet of Ice, a Texas hockey podcast presented by Apollo Media.